The subject of today's video is something that I've been inquiring for quite a while now. For that reason, I've been researching into the subject myself a bit to figure out an answer, both because I was curious and also to make this video, and it turns out that across the Star Wars fanbase, different people have different opinions on what the answer to this question is. So I wanted to make a video explaining what I think the answer to this question is. So, is the light side of the Force inherently good, and is the dark side inherently evil? Before I answer, I just want to alliterate that this is not between the Jedi and the Sith specifically, because it's important to remember that the light side of the Force is not exclusive to the Jedi, nor is the dark side exclusive to the Sith. So to answer the question, I think the answer is no. Neither side is inherently good nor evil. It is dependent on the user's intentions. And in this video I will explain why. So to start off with explaining why I believe this to be the answer, we first have to reiterate that the light side and the dark side of the Force are not two opposing factions or sides of the Force, despite what their name suggests, because the Force itself is, at the end of the day, a single entity which holds no inherent moral compass. So in my opinion, it would be more appropriate to define the light and dark sides of the Force as means of using and applying the Force, rather than factions of the Force, for lack of a better word. So how do these two different methods of applying the Force differ from each other exactly? Well, I'll start off by explaining how the dark side of the Force works. People usually explain things as light and dark side of the Force, usually in that order, but the reason I'm explaining the dark side first is because when I do, explaining the light side of the Force will make more sense. So basically, how one taps into the dark side of the Force is by using the Force whilst indulging in very strong emotion. Now this is part of the reason why many people believe the dark side to be inherently evil, because these strong emotions typically tend to be something along the lines of sadness and anger and other emotions that have a somewhat negative connotation to them. But there are two reasons as to why I disagree this reason to be why the dark side is inherently bad. One, because although that is typically the case, anger and sadness and emotions like that are typically the emotions used, remember we're talking about what is necessarily the case, and that isn't necessarily the case. And second of all, even if it was emotions like anger and sadness and other strong negatively connotated emotions like that, even if it was those emotions, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing either. Because in spite of those specific emotions having a negative connotation to them, the truth is that there is no such thing as an emotion that is inherently good nor evil. It is what you do with said emotion that counts. In fact, the reason those emotions have a negative connotation isn't actually due to their morality, it's rather because their emotions more difficult to deal with. So that is how the dark side of the Force is defined, and why I believe that based on how it is defined, it is neither inherently good nor inherently evil. Now the light side of the Force is pretty much the opposite of that.
Well, no fucking shit!
The way one taps into the light side of the Force is less tapping into the Force with raw emotion, and rather with more rational reasoning. Now it's not like lightsiders couldn't have emotions, because that would pretty much be impossible. Rather it's that lightsiders shouldn't let emotion cloud their usage of the Force. Now although this may seem a lot more of a practical use of the Force, and it is, that doesn't mean it's inherently a more morally good option. Because there are times in life where the better option, morally or otherwise, is following what your emotion tells you to follow, rather than following what seems most practical. And on that note, that is essentially the end of me explaining why I don't believe neither the light nor the dark sides of the Force are inherently good nor evil, and it is dependent on the user's intentions. The video today was particularly short, and that was simply because my reasoning in this video didn't require as much nuance as my other videos tend to require. So on that note, I will end the video off here. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any disagreements or anything else to add, Feel free to use the comment section to voice them. Granted, they're kept respectful, and I will see you in the next one.